Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Impact Tour. I'm Jessica Safransky-Schott. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at United Way of Racine County. I'm thankful for each and every one of you for joining us today and excited to have a great conversation with Brother Mike and Geraldine Bodie from John XXIII Educational Center. This is one of a series of impact tours that we've done over the course of this year and will continue into the next year. And this Lunch and Learn series is designed to help show the impact of our collective efforts and work in the Racine County community. The work of United Way of Racine County and our partners is made possible by donors, volunteers, partner agencies, and community partners like John XXIII Educational Center. We hope that after today's impact tour, you have a better understanding and see firsthand the impact and the day-to-day work of United Way and our impact partners and how organizations like John XXIII live united by fighting for the health, education, financial stability of every person in our community. Before we get started, I wanted to note that we will be recording today's session so that it's available for viewing later, whether by yourself or by others who weren't able to join us live today. We do encourage you to ask any questions, so please utilize the chat feature, and we will have some time at the end of our conversation for questions and answers. We do ask that you keep yourself muted during the conversation and welcome you to unmute yourself during the Q&A period. Today, we are speaking with and hearing from Brother Mike Cotto, Executive Director of John XXIII Educational Center, and Geraldine Bodie, the Middle School Coordinator at John XXIII Educational Center. Good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you.
So let's get started just by having you tell us, what is the mission of John the 23rd? What do you do?
Well, our mission is to prepare and empower middle school and high school students, grade 5 through 12, in their academic journey. We support them emotionally, socially, and academically with the hopes that they would graduate and have options for post-secondary education.
Great. So I know that you do that in a whole bunch of ways. Can you tell us about some of your programming, how you deliver services, and if any of those various elements have any specific goals?
Thank you. I'm going to speak about our work here at the center, and then Ms. Bodie will talk about the outreach program. First of all, we're located at 1101 Douglas Avenue on the near north side of Racine in the old St. Patrick School building. And our center hours are Monday through Thursday from 4 to 5:30 and then again from 6:30 to 8 p.m. during the school year. We have different areas in the building for middle school and for high school students. And at the center, the main focus is to assist students with their homework. Also, we promote reading among students. If they come and they don't have homework, we promote reading, other enrichment activities, and tutoring is the main action of our staff interacting with students. Some students, though, like a quiet, welcoming place for themselves to work, so we offer that too. And then we do have a mentoring program with local adults who work one-on-one with students. And then we also have volunteers that offer tutoring to our students. And then finally, we have a parent program, which we have a relationship with the University of Wisconsin Extension, and we work with them to encourage our parents to get involved in their programming. And we also have programming in the parish here that we support and collaborate with. So that's our focus here at 1101 Douglas. And now I'll turn it over to Bodie.
So I have to begin with how I found out about John the 23rd. I was a middle school counselor for Racine Unified, and one of the veterans I worked with said John the 23rd is coming in to share their programming opportunities with us. I was like, wow, we have help. So as a counselor, I had John the 23rd come in and work with my kiddos according to their needs. So I really got to see and appreciate that. Now I'm on the other side. I am soliciting counselors to use our program, and I'm going in and doing support groups. We have 5 different curriculums. One is superhero skills, which is an eclectic collection of skills that are taught, and we speak in a intimate, friendly, confidential setting. It has the power of peer support, which is just being with other students who have the same issues. It addresses things like confidence, support system, many things. We also have a curriculum called Justice 2020. It was recently renamed because of the challenges society faces, but it teaches students the steps of having a restorative justice circle so they could settle a friendship dispute on their own before going to an adult or with an adult. It's one of my favorites. We also have Crossing the Bridge, which helps 5th graders transition to 6th graders or 8th graders transition to 9th grade. That has been a long-standing curriculum with the center, probably since it began. And then we have Healing Gently, which addresses grief and loss, not just personal loss of a loved one, but it can be used for these changes we've gone through in the loss of structure in society. I mean, even adults have had a sense of loss during these times we are in. And the one that gets me most excited is our Heartfulness group, which is the ABCs of mindfulness and meditation, which the research has shown not only improves focus for students, but academic excellence and less discipline referrals. I could actually go on for a long time about all the things that mindfulness does. We've been fortunate to be able to connect with not just Racine Unified schools, but private schools such as Siena Schools, 21st Century, Evergreen, and I probably forgot one. Yeah, that's my favorite.
A really impressive array of opportunities for families and students to get support. And I think what I like most about everything that you've shared is the fact that the programming is really tailored to both the student needs and their interests, and also responsive to what's happening in our community and in our world right now, which I think is really critical for students as they learn and develop and grow into young adults and productive members of society, is to have adults that help them grapple with and learn and cope in today's society, which is full of all sorts of challenges and barriers, but also great opportunities and ample joy. So appreciate the way that you approach programming to support students in our community. Tell us, what does a normal day of programming look like? Maybe for, I think Brother Mike, you talked about this a little bit for youth that come to the center. So you could speak to that, or Bodhi, just for any of your outreach programs, what does that look like for a student? What are they getting into when they sign up for your programming?
Well, I failed to mention earlier that part of our parenting program includes an ESL program, an English as a second language. We are partnered with some community volunteers who do that on, right now there's 3 Zoom classes that run in the evenings and the mornings. But so students come at the time that they can come. Their parents, you generally drop them off. And whenever they come, we greet them at the door. They go to the appropriate room. We sign in. Every student every day completes a goal sheet indicating what they need to get done and what they seek to get done. And then staff check that before they leave for the day to make sure that they did accomplish it, or to be prepared for what they do. Some students stay 2 sessions if they have a longer assignment, and they can do that if we know ahead of time that they are going to do that. Generally, they work on their homework, or if they don't bring homework, they're asked to read or get involved in some sort of educational game, or some of them have online enrichment activities through their school. Then there's another option at the last half hour of both sessions. We have a gym, and so some students like to go to the gym just to hang out or to shoot baskets or whatever they'd like to do. If students need to leave early, they can leave early as long as their ride is there and the parents are waiting. It's a flexible schedule, and so we don't know in any given day who's going to come. So we're prepared for not only the ones who we see regularly, but we're also prepared for families to walk in literally at any given time and start that day. And once the family registers, they can do that. So we're accessible in that way during the 2 sessions we conduct.
What a relief it must be for your families to know that they have a safe place for their kids to go and to get that support. That's really cool. Sorry, Bodhi, you were going to tell us about some of the outreach programs.
So a typical day during the day, not after school, where I would go into a school during a date and time chosen by the school counselor, the curriculum chosen by the school counselor. And we begin our first session with a pre-survey and a little introduction, maybe a warm-up activity. Then every session starts with a heart math exercise, which is 30 seconds, research proven. You can go to heartmath.com. It's all the rage among the school science people. Many of them know about it. It's a very brief, calming activity that uses breathing, gratitude, and focusing on the heart. And then we dive into the lesson for the day centered around a topic, in topics such as confidence, support systems, self-efficacy. And it's not done just by having a conversation. There are activities woven in, sometimes a craft to celebrate and remember what we've done. Sparkle jars are my favorite because they teach you how to stop, enjoy the moment. And that goes on for 5 to 6 weeks. And I've got these my favorite S.E. Johnson, anonymous donor gave us these. They're counselors know what these are. They're thumb balls, and kids love to play games in real time, not video games. They make connections and relationships. And so when you catch the ball, my thumb landed on a turning point in my life. Boy, I got a lot to say about that. So, and they do too. So it's really a fun, relaxed atmosphere. And sometimes we're able to solicit some students to come and use the center after they've been through an outreach program.
That's a really great segue, excuse me, into the next question, which is really like, who is your target population here? It sounds like you're able to sometimes get your students from schools to come to the center, but how would a student in school get selected to participate in one of your programs? Or how would a family in the community get connected to the center?
Well, for the programming that goes on at the center, it's usually word of mouth. It could be families telling families. It could be a counselor or a social worker at a school who has identified students who have academic needs to direct them to contact us. We do try to get the word out as best we can to families that they could certainly come, but really our target audience is really people who have that academic need or a place to come where they can be welcomed. And so we do rely on parent support because of the transportation needs, but oftentimes we find too that parents will register a student just as an insurance plan in case they do need the support, and then they might come for a year or two, and then they might not come later, but they still are connected. And we do follow up with those students even if they don't come physically to the center, because we've developed a relationship. And in high school, so many of the students do get involved in extracurriculars or have jobs, and so they can't necessarily come physically to the center, but they know that if they have the chance and they need the help, they can come. So generally, we find that our students are those who can't afford to hire a personal tutor or go to centers that charge a good amount for a personal care, one-on-one or oversight tutoring. And so by default, we tend to serve some students who are below the ALICE range, but it's not required that they do so. I guess Bodhi could just say how did the students come in, how did they find out, how did the schools find out about her? If you wanted to say something about that.
Well, in September, I reached out and I email and phone call the counselors of every middle school, Racine Unified, all their counselors, and then, you know, the Siena counselors. And there's been an ongoing relationship before I worked here. And then a lot of them know me from when I worked with Racine Unified. So that's fortunate for us because it builds some trust. And I invite them to sit down and discuss what kind of curriculum would best give them a helping hand and lighten their load for the year. And we just kind of take it from there.
That's great. And I'm sure that you're much in demand, particularly at the middle school level where students are going through so much change and growth and physical growth and hormonal and emotional changes, that as much support as they can get, I'm sure is very welcomed in the schools. Brother Mike, you talked a little bit about families being at or below the ALICE threshold, which is asset limited, income constrained, but employed members of our community, sometimes referred to as the working poor, individuals that are gainfully employed but aren't making a wage that allows them to fully support their families in a way that they would like to. And so the services that you provide help remove that barrier of having some disposable income to hire a tutor. Can you tell us, are there any other barriers that your families may encounter and any practices or things that you have in place to help overcome those barriers so that students can receive the services that they'd like?
Well, for our Hispanic families, language is often a barrier in the sense that parents don't necessarily have the language skills to assist their children with different types of assignments. And then we do have some of the parents of our students do participate in the ESL class so that they can learn English so they can better understand the dominant language in the US. So that would be one barrier. You know, we definitely a barrier for some families is transportation, and we don't have a way around that to get students to come. That's why we allow the flexible time frame where students can come basically when parents can bring them and pick them up when they can bring them. So we hope that's a way to help with a barrier. We know that we're not in the evening, it requires transportation, but we do feel that because we are an evening program and one of the few in the city, that is an option for families. And you know, a lot of families will say, well, I didn't even know about this till someone told me. And so we said, well, spread the word. We're trying to get the word out, but we really depend on school personnel to make us known because they know their families better than we do. So that would be the barrier. And then of course in outreach, the barriers are whole scale, and because the counselors select students, they know best who needs that help, and it can run the gamut. The groups are very diverse. I think Ms. Bodie would agree, racially and economically, to some extent.
Thank you. So tell us something that you are just wildly proud of. Tell us about a milestone for the program or for the organization or for any of the students and families that you've served. What are you really proud of right now?
I'm going to let Bodie take the lead on this, but I'll add
Um,
something.
There is a young lady, and I will keep her name in confidence. I met her my first year here, and this was before COVID. This was in 2018. And her mom was taking her out of her current school, which I will also leave unnamed because the problem truthfully occurs in all schools. She was being bullied and was too timid to, stand up for herself and advocate for herself and go to someone about it. At the same time, the mom, who is somewhat of a language barrier, was not getting any feedback that made this young lady feel safe to go to school. So absences were high, bright young lady, grades plummeted. Mom trying to different schools, trying homeschooling. Homeschooling was a chore. So she was bringing her to the center, and this young lady ended up being selectively mute. I gave mom some referrals for resources in the community as far as counseling. To some degree, mom engaged with that. To some degree, the young lady was not ready to do it. And it's really interesting to tutor someone who doesn't talk at all. A lot of pointing, a lot of head shaking, a lot of note writing. And even when schools, were shut down, we were able to remain connected by phone. And sometimes mom just wanted to talk. And lo and behold, now this young lady has been with us for 3 years. Earlier this year, mom calls me and she brings her daughter in to the center. She never brought her too often, but we would see her often enough. Finally found a school she's comfortable at, and she's talking. Not only is she talking, she asked mom if she could get a new dress for their school's homecoming event. She wanted to go out and socialize. And most of the credit is given to the mom, but I was just so glad that our center was there for her. It wasn't that she took any of our advice. I don't think it was, mom has a good head on her shoulders. I think it was just knowing that there was an organization out there who was willing to listen. And that's just wonderful, because as a counselor, bullying, unfortunately, is a part of our culture that we need to transition out of, but it's an issue. And having a sense of community somewhere else, if you're unwelcomed in your school, I think is very important.
I would add that when COVID hit, we were able to transition pretty quickly to offer tutoring and assistance via Zoom. And then also, we not only did the tutoring piece, but our staff created little vignettes, little lessons online that we had several hundred people participate in, just little ways to buoy their spirits, to cope with the things that were going on. And that was a way in which we were able to adjust, where when we had everything was shut down, we had no way to contact families. I don't know if you want some data points also at this point, or do you want to?
Sure.
So we hope this year, our goal is to serve 375 students and their families. And also over the years, we've had a 97% graduation rate with the students who attend our center. And we're proud of that. Many of whom have gone on to post-secondary education. Also, we have found that in our outreach groups, there's almost 100% growth in students in terms of how they self-describe what they do. And as I referenced earlier, sometimes we keep track of our attendance, but sometimes if a student comes for a year or two and then doesn't continue to come, that's a success, because the families report they're doing well. They got the catalyst effect of buoy their own self skills, and then in many cases they're able to self-navigate, which we think is great. And that's why we stay in touch with those families and talk to the parents and keep a relationship going. So those are some of the success stories I see that are not quantitative always, but qualitative once you get to know the journey of the family.
Absolutely. Thank you both for sharing some really impressive work that you're doing to support students and families in our community. Doing just a quick time check, and we have about 3 minutes left. So as we get close to wrapping up, I wanted to ask, what are things that people can do to get involved and to support the center? I know that you are always looking for volunteers and mentors, tutors, right? What else could people do to support the center?
In addition to that, which is probably the most wonderful thing we could ask for, we are always in need of individually wrapped snacks because it patches the student through till dinner time, so they're not hungry while doing homework. We accept copy paper as a donation. We accept books. We are encouraging books by authors of color or in which the character is a person of color. So for example, some books donated by some generous Johnson's Wax employees that our students really enjoyed. And some copies are given as gifts, some copies are kept in our library, but very popular is Jason Reynolds, Miles Morales' Spider-Man, One Crazy Summer by Rita Williams Garcia, and The Stars Beneath Our Feet by David Barkley Moore. What these three books have in common, besides just an author of color or character of color, is that they address the urban experience for the teenager in America. One book even addresses grief and loss, which unfortunately is a common problem a lot of our students are having to face through this pandemic and social unrest and the rise in violence, and books open doors. So books.
I love that. And those are some good books that you mentioned. Questions? Does anybody have any questions? I'm not seeing any in the chat. If anybody has one, we have just a minute left. As you're thinking, I will invite you all to join us for our next Impact Tour. We will continue our virtual Lunch and Learn series in 2022 to continue to give you the opportunity to learn about great programming and resources that happen in our community, and hope that you will join us. You can visit our website. The link is there on the screen, and you'll get a link in a follow-up email as well. But please keep an eye open for future Impact Tours, and also you can watch any recording from previous Impact Tours on that site as well. So not seeing any questions, I want to thank you all for joining us today. I want to thank Brother Mike and Ms. Bodie for the great work that they do in our community and for sharing some of their time and success with us today. And thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.